Hello, welcome to this very special edition of the Pace Report. I'm Brian, Pace reporting live here at the Blue Note here in New York City. Tonight, blessing the band stage here at the Blue Note is saxophonist Craig Handy. Craig Handy tonight is performing selections off his brand new debut record off the OK Records imprint with his band, the Second Line Smith. And this record is a great tribute to the great Jimmy Smith and also the great tradition of jazz, that soul jazz that was made famous by not only Smith but also people like Jimmy McGriff, as well as Papa Lou Donaldson and Cannonball Adderley, just to name a few. As you might know, during the mid-1980s, Craig was part of that great Young Lions crew that came in as part of the second resurgence of this great music, as what we call jazz or American roots music. We sat down early and we talked about this new record. We talked about him being part of that great Young Lions crew in the 1980s, as well as where this music is going musically as far as the younger generation of jazz artists. Tonight also will be blessing the band stages one of his dear friends and mentor, the great Dee Dee Bridgewater, as well as trumpeter and label mate Theo Croker. So sit back, relax, enjoy the sounds of Mr. Craig Handy and his band, the Second Line Smith, here on the Pace Report, live at the Blue Note here in New York City. Congratulations on this brand new CD. This album is pretty special to me. One, and when I grew up listening to jazz, my grandfather had three guys that was really in heavy constant rotation. The first guy was Duke Ellington. The second one was Count Basie. And then the third person was our good friend Jimmy Smith. And this record, you're really paying homage to the great Blue Note, actually Verve Records too, because he recorded for Verve too, Jimmy Smith.
Yeah, well, thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be here with you. And yeah, Jimmy Smith is, he opened the door for organ. You know, he really put organ on the map. And, you know, I was talking to somebody recently about, like, why people like organ, you know, because I used to think, like, it's part of, like, the church experience, you know. But they were saying that it's more general than that. It's just a cool sound. It's just like once you hear the organ, it's just kind of like, wow, that's really nice, you know. But it certainly fits in this band because what we were doing in the beginning before we added the second line element, we were just playing gigs with just an organ quartet with the guitar, the saxophone, guitar, organ, and drums. And, you know, after about the fifth or sixth gig, I was like, man, you know, this is great, man. This is burning. This is really happening. But Jimmy Smith did this already. He already did it. So I'm like, well, you know, I'm not going to, nobody can play better than Jimmy Smith, you know. You know, everybody can play as good as they can play, you know. But the trick is to find out who you are, you know. So we, you know, nobody's ever going to play better than, you know, you or hopefully me or, you know, whatever it is that, you know, we end up doing and leaving behind. So I thought, well, I'm going to put a twist on it.
You know, Jimmy Smith really did play a lot of the blues in his recordings, and even the sidemen on those Gothic records, like the Sermon, that's like, or Midnight Special, and I can just go on and on because, like I said, I used to listen to those records, really still do. Something about the blues in those records that really touched the nerve with just a lot of music fans.
Well, the blues is where rock and roll, you know, a lot of pop music in America comes from the blues. You know, the blues is like, you know, I was gonna say it's like garlic. It's like if you don't put garlic in the sauce, you ain't got no sauce. All you got is water and some, you know, maybe some tomatoes. You know, but you got to put the garlic in to get the flavor to come out. You know, so you know, it's like. I always say, like, you know, it's like the roux in the sauce. You know, it's like you got to have the roux before you can make the whole thing work. It's the root. You know, the blues is the key. You know, and you can always tell great players. You know, because great players always have elements of different things in their playing. You know, and really great players always have like an extra helping of some of those great things. Like, you know, great players that have like the blues in their playing is deeper than players who have checked out a lot of other things but haven't gotten to that yet. So it's something that everybody has to deal with if you're going to play jazz in this country.
how long have you known brother Craig Handy?
I think I've known Craig for about 4 or 5 years.
What is it about Craig that really brings a whole nother unique flavor to jazz music?
Oh, his personality certainly. Craig is a unique individual, and he plays with a lot of fire and passion, and he plays very, very. How do you say? What's the word I'm looking for? He knows his shit. Oh, I can't say that.
Yes, you can.
Okay, though he knows it all, so he plays it all. You know, every time I've had the pleasure to play with him or join him on the bandstand, he always pulls out something that later I'm like, man, what was that? You know, I've heard, you know, people that are dead play stuff like that, but you have all that figured out. You want to show me that? So he's always, you know, and he always takes the time to show it to me. So I guess that's why I like him too.
You guys are now label mates on
Yeah.
a great label that has been at the forefront of recording American roots music. How does that feel?
Oh, it feels good to be a part of it. Hopefully we can bring it to the forefront again. We are American. We do have some new music. So I think it's hip. Our paths have aligned again.
Craig, you grew up in the Bay Area in California. Tell me how the saxophone came into your psyche.
Well, I had a few other instruments that I played, that I tried before I got to the saxophone. I started on piano, played that for about 8 or 9 months, and then I went to, well, I have to tell you the story because otherwise you're going to ask me, why didn't I keep playing piano? So here's the story. I had a teacher that was a young lady, and she's probably in her mid-20s, you know, probably fairly attractive, and she was easy on the eyes. So when I was 8 years old, I used to go to my lessons once a week because my sister was studying with her. And so my parents said, okay, well, now it's time for you to start piano lessons. So I went, and, you know, I studied for 6 or 8 months or something like that with her. No, it was about 6 months. And then she moved away to Europe to study, you know, to study abroad. And when my parents got me the next teacher, it was another lady who was quite a bit older. She's probably, you know, maybe in her 60s, and she wore doily collars, and, you know, she had shock white hair, and, you know, nothing wrong with that, but it's just like, it shocked me, you know. It was just like, well, I don't know, I think I like the other woman better, you know. But in my mind, I wasn't thinking about, you know, the teacher so much. I was just thinking about the experience, you know, because the other woman was young and fairly attractive. So I thought I just liked piano, you know. So I had the, you know, instead of telling my parents, I said, look, get me like another teacher somebody I can relate to. I just said I don't want to play piano anymore. So unfortunately, you know, my piano career was cut short because I didn't realize that it was more the relationship between the student and the teacher that counted at that point, because I didn't know how to articulate what it really was that I was after. So then I went to guitar, and I played that for about 3 weeks, and my fingers were really hurting, and nobody told me I had to continue until the calluses built up, because there's a lot of pain involved when you first start. So I quit that, and then I studied trombone for about 10 weeks during the summer program. I was in summer school, and playing trombone in the band. And the trombone was great, man. There's nothing as beautiful and as powerful as the sound of the trombone. I mean, you can just play one note, and the entire audience will just be like, you know, it'll blow their hair back, you know. There's a beauty and a power to that it's difficult to I don't think it exists in any other instrument. Certainly not any other wind instrument. And but what I discovered, though, is that you have to practice every day. If you practice for 3 or 4 days, you get better and better and better and better. Then you take 1 day off, you slide 2 days back. Then you practice again for a few days, and you start to get better and better. And then you take 2 days off, you slide 4 days back. You know what I mean? So, like, at that point, I was like, well, wait a minute. You know, every time I stop playing for a day, I slide 2 back, or if I take 2 days off, I go back 5 days, you know. This is too much work. This is not going to work. It's just, you know, I don't have that much time. I got to go out and play some hoops, you know, or something. So Trombone was short-lived as well. And then I was riding in the car with my mom, and I think she was taking me home from school one day, and I heard a recording of Dexter Gordon. And man, that sound hit me like right in the chest. It was like went right through me, and I was like, "Oh my goodness!" I said, "Mom, that's what I want to do." I pointed at the radio. I said, "That's what I want to do." She said, "Yeah, okay, we'll see. You don't already like mess around with these other three instruments, and we spent all this money, and you didn't do nothing. So we'll see what's going to happen." So my parents got me a saxophone. They kind of like they played it cool for a while, and they said, well, maybe. It must have been around May or something, and they said, well, we'll see. Maybe you'll get one for Christmas. We'll see what happens. But they surprised me. My birthday is in September, and they gave me one for my birthday. So I was so happy. I got that horn, and I went upstairs, and I don't think I came out for like a week. They had to slide the food under the door. I was just gone, man. I was just playing scales, and So it kind of took natural. I took natural to it. So I didn't really study with anybody. I'm self-taught on the saxophone, and I think that the early piano lessons kind of helped me because I learned how to read the notes from the piano lessons, and I must have been learned how to read some bass clef too when I was playing trombone, which I've since forgotten now. But that early training was just enough to kind of give me a little bit of a foundation so that I could continue on by myself. And I never really found any teachers. I mean, I imagine, I know Joe Henderson was out where I lived in San Francisco, and I did try to get with him and take lessons. But the day I went to his house, the Phantom didn't answer the door. And so, that was that. And didn't find anybody else to study with throughout all those years. So I ended up teaching myself, still trying to figure it out.
Lady sings the blues. She's got 'em bad. She feels so sad. Now the world will know. She's never gonna sing no more. Lady sings the blues. She tells her side nothing to hide. Now the world will know. She's never gonna sing down no more. The blues ain't nothing but a pain in the heart. When you get a glance down, when you and your parents apart, I ain't gonna sit around and cry no more. I know that I won't die because I love them. Lady sings the blues. She tells her side nothing to hide. Now the world will know. She's never gonna sing no more. No more.
Dee Dee Bridgewater.
Dee Dee, Craig's been in your band for a little over 3 years now, and what was it that made you decide that Craig was your guy for your band?
Well, it wasn't me that decided that Craig was the guy for my band. It was Edsel Gomez who suggested Craig when James Carter decided that he wanted to move on. And I had heard Craig play. And at the time, well, the years prior to him working with me, I always thought he was a fine brother. And so I liked the idea of this fine brother being in my band with his dreadlocks. And to be very honest, I really didn't know his playing that well. I just remembered that whenever I heard him, I thought, oh, he sounds good, he sounds good. But when he started playing in the band, that's when I really began to hear, because, you know, we were on the stage together almost every night. And he's just, first of all, I think he's one of the most melodic saxophonists that I know. He's very, very underrated. I don't know how he slipped under the radar. Maybe it's because he's been such a good side man that so many people have wanted him in their bands that he never felt the need to really step out on his own. But one of the things that happened when we were working together, and because we were together for 3 years, I would say, come on, Craig, you got to do your own thing. Do your own thing. Come on, you know. And I loved that he was very open. He's a very open and a very curious individual as a human being. And he will just start a conversation with anybody. He has no fear in that area. And so as I saw that, I thought, maybe this will translate itself to the stage. So when I started to dance and clown around, he started coming on in and jumping on in with me. And he became kind of like my foil. And the thing that I really love with Craig is that there is an innate musical understanding between the two of us. I love scatting with him because I really become the other horn, and we can kind of sense where the other person is going when we're improvising. And that, I think, is something very, very rare. That's something that I had with Freddie Hubbard. Whenever Freddie and I would jam, it was always just something special. And Freddie used to call us, you know, the Lester Young and Billie Holiday. And Freddie always wanted me to work with him, you know, before he had his accidents with his lips. So Craig is the first musician that I really feel this kind of innate understanding, this innate musical understanding. And he can play any kind of music. He can go from funk to smooth to bebop to straight ahead to, you know, avant-garde to, I mean, anything, to church. He can go anywhere. And I love the fact also that he is so proficient on all of the horns that he plays. And he's an amazing flautist. And he's not a bad singer. Although I always tell him, shut up, Craig. Play, don't sing. But there were times when we would be on the road and we would come back from concerts. If there was a piano, Craig would be at the piano. Or he would sit on stage while I would be packing up and he'd be playing the piano. So when we would get ready to go, people would say, where's Craig? I said, he's on stage playing the piano and singing. So I think that he's just a wonderful human being, and I think it comes across in his music. He's an athletic person, and I think that comes across in his music. You know, the young man who is handling the booking here now, Alex Curlin, made a very interesting remark yesterday about Craig's playing. He said, when Craig plays, you hear him physically working out. You know that this is a trained athlete by the way he plays. And I'd never, ever listened to his music like that. But last night and then tonight when I came in, I just automatically started listening to him that way. He's very nimble to be a big man. You saw us go down on the stage. He's very nimble, and you wouldn't think that just to look at him. He's an excellent dancer. He can be very funny. He can be very profound, and I think all of that comes across in his playing. I love that he's found something that in his music, doing this second line Smith, taking the music of Jimmy Smith, who we all love, and doing a second line thing on it, because it allows him to play. He plays a whole lot of stuff, but people get caught up in the rhythm, and so it makes it more accessible. And I think that's a beautiful, beautiful way for him to step back out as a leader.
That'll do it again for this very special edition of the Pace Report. Reporting live here at the Blue Note here in New York City. I'd like to personally thank the talented Craig Handy for his time, as well as comments and time from the legendary Dee Dee Bridgewater, as well as Theo Croker. Also, I'd like to personally thank the staff and management here at the Blue Note for their warm hospitality. As always, please visit my website, www.thepacereport.com, for my weekly column as well as my past segments. Until next time, remember, if it's in the groove, it'll make you move. Till next time, peace.
My honey,